Ladies and gents, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Cup of TCG. We are hot off the presses of our recent videos. Thank you so much for the love and support you've been giving those. Y'all seem to be a pretty hot commodity, considering he's a chilly guy. It's gone down pretty well. My name is Kyle. Joining me is the lovely Callum and Finlay, who is down there, and we are going to be presenting you a light versus shadow showdown in Vynnset versus Boltyn. Well, we've got a little bit of a specialist in the form of Finlay on the Boltyn side of things, and Callum, he's known to dabble in the shadow rune blades. So without further ado, we're just going to slide directly into this game and talk about the equipment before the game kicks off. Finlay, over on your side of things, on the right hand side, give us a rundown of what we got.
Yeah, so I won the die roll in this matchup, so I'm trying Tunic. I'm not sure if it's the correct choice, but Soul Bond Resolve never really gets that much value against Vynnset because the text about damage mitigation on it, the prevention, you've already taken a rune chant, so that's never active if you charge defensively with cards like Saving Grace. And when you're playing what is effectively an aggro race, resolving Tunic V gives you a lot of points in that race. So alongside that, Unsung Versus, it blocks 2. That's good. The Helm of Halo's Grace is, because Vynnset doesn't actually have that many on hits, this is a good way of speeding up your game plan as aggro Raiden. Like, it's just a way of putting an extra card in Soul, meaning you can resolve beacons, etc., whatever. And then Warpath of Ringed Grace is Boltyn's slight upgrade to Snapdragon Scalers. The deck does have snaps in it, but this is preferable most of the time.
Sounds good.
I guess like you've say you're not playing Nolrun in this matchup, as your cards defensively are better as 3 blocks rather than pitching 2 into Arcane Barrier if they're a yellow, right? You get to play some boots that still give you some defensive value as well.
Callum is exactly right. A lot of people are surprised that Boltyn doesn't bring any AB into Rune Blades. The only AB piece Boltyn runs traditionally is Nolrun Gloves, so you'd be losing 3 health if you were to bring them. And the reality is that you have no blues, so you are better blocking 3 with your yellows than you are pitching to AB. It does mean that we're sometimes weak to widespread annihilation and destruction, but it's just that's just how the dice fall, I'm afraid.
It's one of those.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Callum, over on your side of things, on Vynnset, a hero who, as of the last hour of this being recorded, got a new card. What equipment are we bringing into this matchup?
So I've got the newly printed in Rosetta Face Purgatory in the head slot. Really, really awesome card into, like Finlay said, these aggro mirrors. Really helps you get almost like a Scowling Fleshbag type effect on your opponent. I've got Diadic Carapace in the chest slot, choosing this over Tunic as a way to block things like Lumina on hits. As you see, I'm not playing Grasp of the Arknight, I'm playing Vexing Quillhand, which really allows me to keep up the pace on some turns where I might struggle with Rune Chant generation. So I'm foregoing some armor in my arm slot, so I'm deciding to put some armor on my chest instead, and in the feet I've got Spellbound Creepers because this card is completely broken and it's one of my favourite cards in the game, so I'm never not going to bring it.
Fair enough. He likes the Iron Rot boots for sure. Finlay, starting the game, activating Unsung Versus. Is this just to filter your hand early on?
Yep, it's always to filter the hand early on. It's a shame to have to pitch a card like Beacon, but the reality is that actually, this may be a misplay, and I might be undervaluing the Helm of Halo's Grace, because one of the reasons it's so good is that it gives you the soul early to be able to resolve these cards. So possibly that should have been the card that goes into Arsenal, but my logic is I only have 1 card in soul, and it's a little early for Beacon to be resolved, and it's going to be bumpy in the hand.
So here I'm triggering Vynnset at the beginning of the turn and banishing a Phantom Wraith. I've got an early Deadwood Dirge here to help me get some Runegate cards out nice and early. So I've got 3 Rune Chants with 6 physical here. Still holding 2 cards, but this is kind of the way sometimes with Vynnset, especially on early turns in the game. You may have noticed I blocked with a Rattlebones on turn 0, which is a 3-block non-attack action. Not super common in Vynnset lists, but Mara Faris, who made this deck list, included it, and I've actually been having a lot of fun with the card in this deck at the moment. It allows you to do some pretty silly things.
Definitely comes in against Boltyn as well, right? The fact that you can bring in those non-attack actions that don't pump the attacks on block, provided there's been a charge. For people who do not know what Boltyn's effect is, if you're charged this turn, your attacks get +1 while defending while being defended by an attack action card. So it does make almost every single one of Boltyn's attack a little bit evasion. When it comes in for 3, you have to block it with an NAA, or that's getting pumped for 4 and it's going to hit you in the face. So yeah, something to bear in mind. So being able to put those NAAs in at basically 0 inclusion cost, pretty damn decent.
Yeah, I think, well, Vynnset has become quite a lot harder for Boltyn as the decks have started to tend to include more D-Reacts, more Revels in Runeblood, and Haunting Renditions. Yeah, so I've got the classic Boltyn 2-card play here, which is Beaming Bravado into a Raiden Swing. Always happy to see that. And I believe I have a Via the Vanguard and Arsenal from turn 1, which is the other reason I pitched that beacon, now I remember. So I'll be looking to put a card into my soul this turn with Helm of Halo's Grace.
Yeah.
To hopefully be able to resolve a powerful V turn.
Callum, an interesting turn cycle just then. Raiden coming in for 3 and deciding to activate the instant ability of Haunting Rendition, so actually taking some damage. You're valuing the Rune Chant generation off the back of that, right? A little bit more than, well, the 1 damage that you took.
Yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, Finlay's not on any arcane barrier in this matchup, which means that all of my Rune Chants are unpreventable for Finlay, right? So I am always going to get these Rune Chants through. So I'm happy to take 1 damage on the Raiden Swing. There's no courage on hit from the Unsung Verses, so I'm happy to take the 1 damage to get the 1 damage back on the offense. It also allows me to dirge up to 4 Rune Chants here, meaning that I get to play the Sonata Galaxia to get a Malefic Incantation, which has been a huge upgrade for Vynnset since being printed in Rosetta. Really, really great consistency piece to help you keep your Rune Chants ticking along through each turn. So Finlay's going to block with the Helm of Halo's Grace here, which is a signal for me that something's about to kick off.
Yep, he be wanting to draw that card. He wants the extra soul.
Being upset about the Banneret of Protection that gets banished there from the Widespread Ruin, as that's my only way of mitigating arcane damage if I ever manage to charge them and trigger the Soul Flare.
Yeah, Banneret of Protection, a card which people may not know exists. Whoa, another one!
There is!
It's crazy, we've had 2! Yeah, kind of crazy. This is probably the most least represented token in the game, right? That being, was it Spellbound Aegis token? Yeah.
Rosetta has presented a really good opportunity for Boltyn to show off cards like Banneret of Protection, which, as it turns out, in a meta where arcane damage is very prevalent, is actually a really exceptional card. Being able to just put Spell Void on the board, you'd need quite a lot of it against Vynnset, but in some cases, you know, being able to mitigate 2 at the end of the game is so important, and people do forget about it because it's so odd for no decks have Spellbound Aegis tokens just floating around.
Yeah.
Here we're doing the traditional Boltyn power play, which is I Tunic V. Unfortunately, Runeblades now have a good defensive tool against it, which is Face Purgatory, but you could argue that by playing Tunic V, I'm saying to Callum, you have to Face Purgatory me here no matter what. Like, this is the time to do it. If you miss this, you'll lose. Like,
yeah, there could be the chance that this is the only Tunic V Finlay lines up in the game, right? So, and if that's the case, and if you notice, a V went into Finlay's soul early on in the game, so there's only 1 left. If this game ends before that comes around, then I will have regretted missing my opportunity to block with the Face Purgatory at the earliest convenience.
I mean, we're talking about this turn being hindered, but this was still a Via the Vanguard for 5 into a Raiden for 5 into an Illuminate for 6. Like, it was still a 16 damage turn off of, what, a Tunic, essentially? So, a good damage swing there, and naturally being able to take yourself into the lead. Of course, just Vynnset things, we're still going to be having a hell of a lot of damage coming your way. with the definitely. Is this definitely wow? I always get the cards mixed up.
Yeah, this is definitely well. So you see here I pop the Vexing Quill hand to make sure I have enough rune chance to get this one through. Vexing Quill hand, a real key piece in this matchup to not miss a beat. But I may have considered blocking more on the previous turn and taking a turn off if it wasn't for another card in my hand. You may have seen me flash it just then. It is another big upgrade from Rosetta. God, Vynnset's had a few of them, eh?
Say that again.
Another big upgrade from Rosetta, the brand new Succumb to Temptation, which Finlay plays around pretty flawlessly here, committing the Tunic to blocks. He's got that 1v, that's all he cares about.
Yeah, the thought process for me here is, as Callum said, we already know there's only one left in the deck for Via the Vanguard, and when Vynnset holds that many cards, it just feels like Succumb. Like, and my logic is also that the game isn't going to go that much longer. That may be because I've played against too much of the pure redline Vynnset deck that was very popular over the last few months. This deck that Callum's playing is a little more defensive, so possibly I was a bit overzealous with the Tunic block, but Succumb was there, so in hindsight it makes me look right, I suppose.
Yeah, it was definitely the correct block, and like I say, you get to be a little defensive on this turn, not take the Succumb on hit, and you now know that I am down a Vexing Quill hand at this point, which is nice for you.
Yeah, it feels really. The game feels much safer once Vexing Quill hand has left the board, I think.
Another Malefic coming on in. Pretty brutal.
Yeah, really good rune chant engine, the Malefic incantations here. So another new card is Machinations of Dominion, which is a blue 3-block go against source that's kind of replaced Mothrian Skies in a lot of these lists. It's a little bit of damage evasion for potentially closing out games later on with giving your Runeblade attack overpower. Like I say, kind of a medium damage turn here. Didn't really get to capitalize too much off of a big hand from Finlay, but happy to just sort of throw some damage back.
I suppose
get a little bit of life.
Machinations, you said, of course, replacing Mothrian Skies for the guaranteed go again. The reason it being guaranteed go again in Vynnset is because of her start turn ability, right? And the fact that you need to banish a card, and when you banish a card, you make that rune chance. So you've already ticked the box on, hey, you've made Nora this turn. We're seeing cards like Malefic Incantation as well, which you're using to great effect in this game so far. Be able to just enable things that wouldn't usually happen as well, like creating 2 in the back here. Like if you did have another card banished, as well, let you continue going. Like a lot of these cards that we've got from Rosetta, I'm sure it's not in this deck, but Rune Major Swarm as well, comboing off of cards like this. I mean, Swarming Gloomveil as well, to be able to be like, oh, actually, Malefic Incantation is a essentially a 1-card setup play, which allows all of these cards to enable themselves and to be able to get going and to keep going further and further.
Like you mentioned in
if you're curious, sorry Cam, but if you're curious as to why I'm thinking for so long here, I am not super familiar with playing against this Vynnset deck, and I'm trying to think through if I think he has another Succumb to Temptation, and the conclusion I eventually come to is that it's very unlikely that Succumb is here because the Machinations have already been played. So I waste a bit of time thinking about that, but it's worth taking time, and especially in a deck like a matchup like this, if you were in a competitive setting, you're definitely not risking going to time. The game isn't going to go that long.
Yeah, the game plan for Vynnset in this game is a little bit different to the decks that are much more capable of blocking you, including blocking the rune chance as well. The game plan is to trade 2-card hands, 3-card hands with Finlay, so leveraging the opportunity to play cards like Reduce to Rune Chant, Haunting Rendition, Sink Blow, to really get those nice 4 breakpoints covered up from Boltyn, and then return a 2-card 8, a 2-card 9, thanks to the Rune Chant generation from these.
So my question here, just before we lose it to time, is what do you think about my armor block on that flail? Because I love putting 1-block armor pieces in front of the flail. Feels really good. But at the same time, I think you're happy to strip the armor. So
I think with the like I say, the inclusion of Succumb to Temptation now, it is somewhat nice to get armor where you can, but obviously I'd much prefer to have the rune charm be carried over into the next turn.
Callum here showing real expertise against Boltyn here. I think many players would be, I've played against a lot of people, and a lot of people de-react that Beam in Bravado.
Yeah.
Callum knows that Spirit is out. He knows that I've held cards for a reason. It's very likely that Lumina is here, and it is so much value to get a Fate Foreseen or a Sync Blow on that Lumina. So that's really nice defensive play from Callum.
Yeah, being able to cover the 4, just denying one of those 2 hits that swing in, right, is pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame for me in a sense that there was an engulfing light finisher there as well, because I'm kind of expecting Finlay to maybe Arsenal a card here, but he gets the nice little finisher on there, refreshing his soul. Nice, and 3 cards in soul now. That's going to enable some pretty nasty turns down the line, but I've got a pretty nasty card coming into my banish zone here anyway.
Yeah. One of the reasons I actually played that Engulfing Light, because the pattern in Boltyn is, of course, to arsenal your charge cards because you need starters. But the reason I wanted to play that card is because I know I'm weak to widespread destruction. So if I can play it, I will, especially if it's likely to go into my soul.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Bolt
so I take a little bit
courage.
of a setup turn here. I didn't have a Finlay's armor block on the flail a couple of turns ago, paid off there, so that was nice. I didn't have the rune chance to play out my rune gate attack anyway, so I'm going to take a turn to Arsenal card, play another Malefic Incantation, and get a very nice rune gate card in my banner.
And you catch me on a total brick.
Yeah.
I have a hand that isn't functional, no attack reaction, so
it has good setup potential, right? You're able to get that. Well, as we shake the table a little bit, Callum just so excited. Just like we set up the banner at Gallantry to be able to get the Quicken on the board, so it opens up and ensures that next turn isn't going to be a brick, almost guaranteed. Very similar to how Courage works in this deck, right? Being able to pump those things and then allow Boltyn's ability to be active on any of your attacks. Callum has kind of ran away with the fact that you had an off turn and is now going to be presenting a pretty brutal amount of damage here, with the red Deathly Whale coming in off the back of 3 rune chants, having 2 in the back now as well.
Yeah, I lose a huge amount of tempo. Like I think I IP 1 or 2 on that turn, and it's so costly having that in an aggro mirror. Now my plan has to be, I have to capitalize on those 4 cards in my soul. Those cards haven't generated any value yet, so I need to find a way to spend them.
Another succumb coming out to be able to refund that action point, and due to that as well, with the combat chain being closed with Deathly Whale, damage being dealt on the rune chants, we're up to 3 rune chants, and oh boy, here comes the destruction, basically to just completely decimate Finlay's
It's not looking
arsenal.
good for my arsenal.
It is not at all, and with that 3 damage being completely unpreventable on the rune chants, the effect is happening. So hope and a prayer that it's a defense reaction, and oh, hello, saving grace, coming in at the last moment to be able to cover that up and ensure that, well, at least you get some form of value out of that arsenal.
Yeah, it blocks 3. I don't charge on with it because
No need at that
I have
point.
enough soul at this point, and it's just, I value that 1 life more than 1 soul, so...
Look, again,
Good 1 card play from Boltyn.
So that one again.
And again, Finlay's got a really nice read on the Succumb to Temptation that last turn as well. Could have been a Creeper's play. I had a full grip, but you just got to take the safe bet. You're going to have to take Rune Chance with no Arcane Barrier, so block out the attack and see what comes next.
And especially when you have cards like Celestial Cataclysm in your hand and you know that you need to capitalize on them, it's too risky to bet on Succumb because Callum will just take the Seek out of my hand, and then I'm left with a Boltyn hand, which will be Engulfing Light Charge, and you will lose in that room with that.
I think we've seen all 3 Haunting Renditions at this point, and it feels like they've all come at like pretty early points, and well, it's enabled an absolute shed ton of damage, right? Being able to swing a number of these attacks, which would not have been active if you did not have that Rune Chant floating.
Yeah, so in the past, Vynnset definitely has struggled with the potential to brick. It's still there, but cards like Haunting Rendition, Malefic Incantation, Deadwood Dirge is a massive one, really help you play your Runegate cards when you need to, and without even a Rune Chant made at the end of your previous turn. So you Vynnset used to sort of live and die by Deathly Well, live and die by Flail of Agony, but now you know you can have some turns where you end without a rune chant, and the Haunting Renditions and stuff might get you back over the line like it did on this turn cycle.
Absolutely. So Phantom Wraith for 6 with 2 rune chants coming in, 2 rune chants already been hit. So now this is just a big fat 6 damage that Finlay is going to have to somewhat respect. Can't really expect there to be another Succumb there. I think we've seen a number of them already. So Finlay blocks out 3 and now returns with what is a pretty decent turn here for Boltyn. E-Strike for 7 on paper doesn't look too great until you remember that Boltyn does not care about how the card gets plus its base damage. So being able to give that go again turns E-Strike for 7 into E-Strike for 7 go again in Boltyn into an Illuminate as a pretty decent swing cycle. But
3 card 11 with an on-hit.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And Callum's not really respected it. Blocked 3 and just
Well,
goes, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to keep going.
To be honest, at this stage, I'm quite happy to get a single card, because if Callum draws enough arcane damage, I'm just cooked anyway.
Yeah.
So it sort of tells me that maybe at least I'm not getting reveled or something like that this turn.
This is an interesting play, Callum, because you had Runegate available, I believe, but didn't opt to go for it, instead paying for one of these cards. That's not something that Vynnset usually does.
Yeah, it's definitely an odd play pattern, I suppose. It's so I've gone for the Eloquent Eulogy from Arsenal here because I only had 2 rune chants, which isn't enough to pay for the Runegate on the Deathly Well, which is a Runegate 3 card. But look, I've triggered the Malefic Incantation, making a rune chant in the bag, and I may have a trick or 2 up my sleeve.
At least 1, maybe a second. Here's a Spellbound Creepers, and that is usually how all of these tricks begin. Being able to play your next non-attack action as an instant, and speak of the devil, there is the Deadwood Dirge, to be able to convert that 1 rune chant into 3 rune chants, and now you have the Runegate available.
So the benefit of playing this Deadwood Dirge, which is a non-attack action with go again at instant speed, means it refunds that action point for me, and I get to play this Deathly Well for no pitch because of Runegate, presenting Finlay with the awkward decision on how to block 5 when the 3 rune chants are unpreventable.
The game does not look good for me at this stage. Looks like I'm very, very close to just dying to rune chants.
And well, you kind of indicate that, right? Potentially breaking that. Always changed his mind. He's changed his mind. I thought he was going to break the Spellbane Aegis, but he doesn't. Holds on to it just for another turn. And now has a Deathly Well coming in for 5. Do you think that was the correct play? You seem to be thinking about it. My thought
process here is that I'm trying to work out at what point Vynnset is going to be able to kill me with an unpreventable rune charm.
Right.
So I would rather keep the Spellbane Aegis around for as long as possible to make Callum's math even slightly more difficult, basically. Okay. So if I'm not at 1, it's reasonable to keep the Spellbane Aegis around. If the Deathly Well was going to put me to 1, then I would have popped the Spellbane Aegis, I think, because obviously then he can just kill me if he draws a Shadow non-attack.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
these Vynnset lists, with the inclusion of cards like Deadwood Dirge and Succumb to Temptation, have cut pretty heavily on shadow non-attack actions at this point. The Myra Farros list that I'm playing here has put the Shadow Puppetries and some Beseech the Demigons and cards that we've seen before into the sideboard. If you can take a peek at my hand there, that is looking like 2 Runegate 3s and a Runegate 4 attack there, which doesn't quite get me enough rune chance to play any of them.
This is some karmic justice for the brick I had earlier. Callum has an even more significant brick than I did, and I am so relieved to just see a flail thrown in here. It's very good for me.
So you're still going to be eating 1 for the rune chant, so going down to 1, but being able to break that Spellbone Aegis. So your last line of defense is kind of gone at this point, so it needs to be a bit of a haymaker turn.
Yeah, this is my turn to strip all of Callum's cards, and if I fail to, then I've probably lost.
I was going to ask on a previous turn if there a reason why you didn't block with the boots to be able to cover up the 5, but it looks like it's actually paid out in dividends, right?
I didn't mention it. I didn't mention it at the time. There's a turn cycle earlier in this game that there was an opportunity to block with the boots with, and I didn't do it, and probably it's cost me, to be honest. Although it's hard. Sometimes it is really hard to find a window to block with Warpath.
Yeah.
How this game played out, I'm not sure if it was the best. This way, I did manage to get a Courage and a Quicken token from it, which is great. It like, you know, when presented with a Bolt for 4, unless Callum has a D-React, it is very scary seeing this.
So here I'm missing the fact that there's a Courage token on this, so I'm thinking on my blocks here, and I've done my maths wrong. So Finlay very graciously allows me to think for a little longer, and all of a sudden a Singular appears in my hand.
Singular, the bane of this deck. You know, if they ever do ban the 0 for 4 D-Reacts, Boltyn will be very happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be really nice.
A little bit of a clump on the banner at the Courage there, right? We saw that in the previous turn that you charge with it here as well, so make another one in the back. We'll represent that in a couple of moments, I'm sure. But yeah, like being able to get this bolt out 4/4 does have to garner some semblance of respect. The Sink Below being committed early on instead of on potentially one of these other attacks that's going to be coming on through, the Raiden, which is activated, the card in your hand, I believe your Arsenal is a Sea-Cat, so you do have options to be able to swing things directly at Callum and potentially bring his HP down. There's a lot of damage available on board at this point. It looks like, again, just thinking to be able to work out what the best play is.
I think I have 2 attack reacts, or I think I have a Lumina and a Courageous Steel hand, and what I'm trying to work out is, should I be pushing this Bolt of Courage draw trigger, or should I be trying to ensure my Lumina's hit to heal me above 1 Rune Chant lethal?
Right.
That's the decision process I'm going through, and I decide here to push the Bolt of Courage. And then what I'm trying to work out is, do I push Bolt of Courage above Haunting Rendition or not? The instant ability on Haunting Rendition. I don't know if I'm thinking about this too much, but when you're not familiar with a deck, it's tricky. The reason this is a safe play is that I have Spirit of Irina out, so I'm not going to...
You're not at risk of...
points, basically. I'm not going to Soul Starve myself here, and clearly I say, right, well, I value the Bolt of Courage draw trigger more, which I'm not sure if it's correct or not. Interestingly, based on this draw, it actually heals me for 1 anyway, so I think the result is the same no matter what decision I make, because I draw a Banner of Salvation, which I then charge, which means that if an attack hits, I heal.
It looks like the Courage is actually missed.
Yeah, I missed the Courage token. As people who have played with me locally know, I am really prone to missing triggers in the most important part of the game. So, you know, clearly I got very excited with my hand. I was just chuffed that Callum had such a horrendous brick turn.
Just think about it.
I was riding that high. Yeah, it was so good. Yeah, and I get punished here with the reduced.
I think people may be wondering why I decided to fling Flail the previous turn with the 2 Rune Chants, and I'm basically just asking Finlay to give me the Spellbane Aegis token. I got some armor as well, but I think Finlay was pretty happy to commit the armor. Notably here, I don't need to block the Spellbound Creepers, so should the Courage have been found, I would have just blocked with the Spellbound Creepers there. The non-attack action plus the Diadic Carapace managed to block the second Lumina on hit, which is what it is in the deck for, and unfortunately here for Finlay.
Yeah, and you know, here people will say, well, you should have brought AB, and in this case, AB is good. Like, you know, this, if you get to this game state consistently, you can argue for AB, but I think the way I view it is that it's the versus is better in my opinion. That's 3 health as opposed to the 2 that would have been saved there.
One thing that is massive to note about the early game of this game is, so Finlay effectively loses here by 1 health, and a Banner of Protection was banished off the top from a Widespread Ruin very early on in the game. That is that tiny little bit of variance that sometimes you just need as Vynnset to get those last points of damage over the line, right? So in combination with the reduced Rune Chant on the last turn cycle, as well as having the non-attack action with the Diadic Carapace to block the second Lumina on hit, drawing that sink below in that last hand as well. I just about managed to block out the last turn, enough to keep a Eloquent Eulogy in hand and send 2 rune chants back at Finlay when his life total is at 2. But the banner of protection early on. Yeah. Oh, imagine.
I mean, you played to the definition of your out, right? Because without you having that Eloquent Eulogy in hand or a 2 rune gate card in your hand, the game was done. You had a card already in your banish zone that was going to be ticking you for blood there, and if you weren't able to play the next one, then you would have ticked down and Finlay would have taken it. So it does come down to the finest of margins, and even that final turn, I think Finlay, you drew the final banneret of protection that you would have potentially been able to use, but of course with those rune chants coming in before the attacks there, you can't do any form of shenanigans when it comes down to blocking and getting that into soul to make that Spellbound Aegis. So
and look, now you mention it, now you mention it, the blood debt that was in my banish zone that would have killed me, I should have blocked the Spellbound Creepers to stay at 2 life. Look, there's it's millimeters of things that could have gone wrong for me in that game, and very fortunately we got it over the line.
Well, the Shadows win this time round in this Shadow v Light gameplay. Commiserations, Finlay. I'm sure you'll get some form of revenge at another time.
Yep. I'll add that mistrigger to my list of of mistriggers, and we'll see.
We ignore the fact that Callum took 3 on that attack when it should have been 4 when it was at 4, and we'll just gloss over that bit. But yeah, guys, absolute pleasure of a game once again. Thank you very much for it. Guys, if you have any recommendations for games that you would like to see on the channel as well, please do let us know. We love playing IRL. We've kind of got the setup almost nailed. We've got a few things we're going to be showing off relatively soon with changes to the format and how we're going to be displaying new piece of information. So wait with bated breath for those coming out relatively soon. But yeah, please, recommendations, games you want to see, heroes you want to see us play, we'll chuck them on the channel very, very soon. And on that note, guys, thanks very much for watching. We'll catch you later. Peace.